Hey, it's Aaron from Foster Athletic and welcome to another video. In today's video, we're going to look at how you can fix your sore knees and sore lower back by actually targeting the cause of the problem, your hips. So a lot of the time when we experience knee pain or lower back pain, we jump instantly in trying to fix the pain in that specific area. Now this might involve a number of different things. It might involve stretching, getting a massage, or aimlessly rolling around on the floor on the foam roller. While those tools give you some short-term relief, they never really seem to solve the issue. You end up constantly needing to keep rolling out, stretching out, going and seeing the massage therapist, or if it comes to it, you even start taking anti-inflammatories just to move around. Something's wrong there. So what I want to do in this video is actually show you what's causing the root problem in the first place, so that then we know how to fix it. And yes, it will be a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but instead of aimlessly rolling around on the foam roller and just attacking the spots that hurt in the moment, we can actually figure out what is the cause, what are the muscles that need to be stretched and strengthened to fix the problem instead of just masking it or making it worse. Alright guys, so what I've got drawn up on the board with my fancy stick figure diagram is actually a little bit of an explanation as to what's going on here. So this is obviously a side-on profile shot of what a person's body will look like, and we're exaggerating the S-curve here, so to show you what the spine looks like and then the legs. So this is specifically what's going on and what's causing the problem. Our spine normally has an S-curve to it. However, what happens when we sit down is our legs obviously sit out at 90 degrees to our torso, and we're in that sort of angle. What that leads to is a closing of this joint angle here and a shortening of the muscles in the front of the leg. So mainly your quads, they become really, really short when you're sitting down, and therefore over time, they actually grow shorter. They start to get tighter. What happens is initially that's not a problem because they're adjusting to the environment, they're adjusting to sitting down. It's when you stand up. When you stand up and those muscles are tight, they actually start to pull down on the pelvis. And because we're sitting down and we're not using the other muscles that help balance that out, what tends to happen is we get this rotation of the pelvis. So as you can see with the arrows here, we get a forward roll of the pelvis. When we actually roll that forward, that then exaggerates the S-curve in our spine, so it becomes more pronounced. That becomes problematic for the lower back especially, because now you've got a hyperextended lower back just to maintain an upright posture. So one of the easiest ways to tell if this is an issue for you is literally stand how you normally would. Don't try to fix anything at this point. Side on to a mirror and just have a look at where the waistline is. Does it tend to sit flat or does it actually tilt down? Now this is obviously going to be affected by if you have your pants sort of tilted, but a general rule of thumb is where it normally falls is going to show you. So if it's tilted forward, chances are you're going to have more of an anterior pelvic tilt, which is causing all of these problems here. What we want to do is obviously roll it back the other way slightly so we get a normal S-curve in our spine and we reduce the tension on some of these tight areas. How we do that is we're addressing what the cause is. So we've got on here tight quads and hip flexors, as we just mentioned before. Those become really tight from sitting down a lot. And that then feeds into a sore, tight lower back. So opposing muscles in this cross area, in this cross fashion, tight muscles are paired with tight muscles. What tends to happen is they're tight because other muscles are weak. The weak ones are the abs, which actually pull together like this and would help balance out this tilt that's going on with the hips. The other ones on the opposite side, if we follow it down, are weak hamstrings and glutes. So again, the role of the hamstrings and glutes are to roll the hips back slightly to give you that hip extension. When people have this situation going on and their hips are rolled forward, instantly, a lot of the times they jump to stretching the hamstrings because anytime they lean forward, they're noticing that their hamstrings are really, really tight. It's not caused from the tight hamstrings. The reason the hamstrings are tight is because the pelvis is actually rolled forward and therefore it's extending those hamstrings right to their capacity. They don't have any more room to go. So by stretching it, we're actually making the problem worse. So we don't want to be doing that. We actually want to strengthen those muscles up so that it helps to pull the pelvis back into alignment. So that's the problem that we're actually talking about and addressing here. That's what's really going on. So it's actually a trickle-down effect. If you've got issues going on at the hips because of sitting down and we've got some mobility issues there, that's going to give you pain in your lower back, and it's also going to give you pain trickling down towards your knees. You're going to start to notice that. If you're at a point now where you're noticing your knees are really sore, you might be able to trace it back to what's going on here. Much the same as the lower back. So if you've got issues there where you stand up for a long period of time and you get a sore lower back, chances are you've got an exaggerated curve in the lower back. Now that we know what's actually causing the problem in the first place, how do we go about actually fixing it? I like to take a three-part approach to this, which actually needs to be performed often instead of just randomly treating the symptoms every now and then. The process is actually really simple. First off, we need to stretch the muscles that are overly tight. We need to strengthen the muscles that are weak, and then we need to retrain our movement patterns so that it doesn't happen again or it doesn't become worse. First off, we want to stretch the muscles that are overly tight. So namely, that's going to be the hip flexors in the front of the body because they get the most tight when we're sitting down for a long period of time. There's two stretches I'm going to show you here, and you can do those at home using either a bed, bench, or even your couch. The first one is actually called a couch stretch, hence the name. This is the best place you can do it, using your couch. To do that stretch, all you're going to do is use a bench or the couch itself where you can put your leg up onto. So you're going to get yourself into almost like a lunge position, into this position here. So you've got one knee roughly on the ground. You can not put your leg on the ground, raise it up on something like a cushion that you can get your back leg up onto the couch. From here, you want to bring it in nice and close. So the further in your knee is towards the couch or the box or the bed, whatever you're going to use, the harder it's going to make this stretch to do. The other leg should be out in front. And from here, what we're going to do, this is really important, put your hands on your hips and you're going to try and roll your pelvis backwards. So we're going to do the opposite of what's really going on there. So our pelvis is at the moment rolled forward. We want to actually try and roll it backwards. So the easiest way to do that is put your hands on your hips, roll your pelvis backwards and hold it there using your glutes, and you're going to push forward just until you should feel a stretch down the front here, particularly in the front of the hip. Hold that for about 30 seconds, then do the other side. So the second one is even more easy than the first, and this one just involves standing up and you're going to then get yourself into a lunge sort of position. Basically what we're going to do, get into this position so you've got a long stance, your back leg's going to stay straight. From here, lean forward, roll your hips back like we did in the couch stretch, and now we're going to stand up while our hips are rolled back and really push our hips forward. All right, so you should feel this in the front of the body here, particularly in where the hip is, maybe even in the quad if it's really tight. If you want to increase this a bit more, you can easily just raise your arms up above your head and lean to the opposite side, and you're going to start to feel all down here is going to stretch too. That's going to help release all of the tension in the front side of the hip. So now that we've actually stretched out the muscles in the front of the hips that are causing these problems, the second part is to actually strengthen the muscles that are actually weak. So we're talking about the glutes, the hamstrings, and the abs. The first exercise is a simple glute bridge. This one's a really good one because it actually builds that mind-muscle connection to your glutes. So you know exactly what it feels like when they're meant to be working. All you're going to do with a glute bridge, lay down on your back, have your heels in nice and close to your bum, legs are going to be hip width apart. And then from here, we're doing the same thing. So roll our hips back and under. As we come up, you're going to squeeze your glutes. Come back down, come back up, squeeze your glutes, come back down. Do them in about sets of 10 and hold the top for 1 to 2 seconds. The next exercise is designed to hit your glutes and your hamstrings in the same movement. So we're going to be using a simple reverse lunge, but in order to do this properly, we're going to make some small adjustments so that you're not just overworking the quads and actually making the problem worse. With a normal reverse lunge, we actually just keep an upright torso and then stand back up. We use both legs accordingly. The way I want you guys to do it is have a slight lean forward so we shift more of the weight back into the glutes. So as we step back, we're going to be shifting our weight back by leaning our torso forward. You shouldn't be pushing through the toes. You should push most of the weight through the heel. And then you come back up, squeeze the glutes at the top. Push your hips back first, stepping back, come back up, squeeze the glutes. A wrong way of doing a reverse lunge would be to shift the weight forward onto the toes, and we're letting the knee come forward. So all the weight at the moment is through my quads. I can actually feel that in my knees. So some wrong reps, we'd be doing this sort of thing, leaning too far forward and coming up onto our toes. What we want to do is keep the weight in the heel, still lean forward, but the weight's in the heel now, and we're actually doing it in a more fluid motion. All the weight's in the glutes, all the weight's in the hamstrings. That's how to do that correctly. Then we want to look at strengthening the abs. There's 2 exercises that if you do these right, they're going to help tremendously. The first one is a modification on the simple dead bug exercise where your limbs are moving independently. This one's going to be a modification. To do this one, what I like to do, which will give you instant feedback as to whether it's working or not, is set yourself up with a band attached to either a table leg or a rack like I've done here. This is then going to go under your lower back. So you're going to pull it out, put some tension on it, and then put your lower back on top of the band. From here, you're going to push the band into the ground. So push your lower back on top of the band so it doesn't move, and have your legs at 90 degrees. Your hands can just go by your side for this one. And then what we're going to do is start by dropping our heel to the ground on each side. If that's too easy, we can go both legs. Staying nice and controlled throughout. If you're doing that and your lower back actually lifts off the ground, what's going to happen is the band's going to actually want to pull back into the rack. So it's going to tell you if your lower back is lifting up. If that's the case, that's a good indication that your abs are simply not strong enough yet to actually control and allow your legs to move freely. So the second exercise that we can use is going to help you build stability while you actually move. And for that, we can use a suitcase carry. So a suitcase carry involves holding a weight in one hand while we're staying nice and straight. So we want to be carrying it next to our body like so. You can use a dumbbell, a kettlebell, bucket of water even, whatever you've got available. The other hand, put up on top of your chest here, and you want to stay up nice and tall. You don't want to be getting into a habit of doing this and overcompensating, because that's defeating the purpose of it. So you want to walk with the weight and you're just taking steps accordingly, staying nice and straight. Go for about 20 meters on one hand, pop it down, turn around, come back on the other hand, 20 meters. All right, so now that we've gone through how to stretch the muscles that are tight, strengthen the ones that are weak, now we need to actually retrain the movement so that we don't run into problems when we do anything such as a deadlift or squat. We want to make sure that we're moving in a way that allows us to actually emphasize squeezing those glutes and getting them nice and strong. In order to do that, this one's a little bonus exercise. This will teach you the proper mechanics of actually doing a hinge movement. So something like a deadlift. What I want you to do is stand in front of a box so your knees are clear of the box. So if you had to bend your knees, you're not going to be restricted in any way. From there, all you do is you put your hands on top of your legs and you're going to push your butt back while tipping forward, just until you run out of flexibility in your hamstrings, and then you're going to come up and squeeze your glutes at the top. You'll hinge down, back nice and straight, come up, squeeze the glutes. As you progress through it, you can add weight to it, but in the beginning, just get the movement down pat first. The right way of doing it is just how I showed you. A wrong way of doing it is to treat it more like a squat. So what you don't want to be doing is actually just squatting down and then coming back up. So that's not really a hinge, we're actually just squatting against it. Correct way of doing it, wrong way of doing it. So making sure that we're tipping forward when we do that movement. Another example of a wrong way to do this is to keep your legs dead straight and not actually keeping your back nice and straight. So from here, you would sort of bend over and you're bending your back and coming back. That's not what we want to do. We want to actually try and touch the wall with your butt as you hinge forward towards your knees, then come up and squeeze your glutes. So there you have it, guys. That is a simple process that if you put into practice, that's going to help you alleviate a lot of the problems that actually cause knee pain and lower back issues. And it's also going to help with movements such as deadlifts and squats as well. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and like the video, as well as subscribe to the channel and share it with a friend who this might help out. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.